exist there. There is a certain apologetics about this, yes. But to be quite honest, I think that in the whole of orthodox thinking today, we find constant apologetics. Because what we have to do is we constantly are bound by this text of the Torah, which we cannot compromise at any time. Now the question is, since you don't want to compromise it, what are you going to do about all the many problems which we have, right? And since we don't want to take the stand of the conservative and the reform movement or of Mordechai Kaplan, but we want to keep it as a divine word, we are forced to do something like this, even when it is apologetic, right? I mean, if you look into the Perush of many Perushim, but if you, and a Perush which I was tremendously influenced in the days when I was not very religious, and that is Rabbi Samson Faro Hirsch. When I now read back his commentaries on many of the mitzvot, there is an incredible amount of apologetics going on over there, which I wouldn't buy today anymore. At the time I bought it, and I think in the century in which he lived, it was extremely well accepted, right? Baruch Hashem. But looking back now, yeah, there are many things over there which are, and this can be said about many also commentators as well, they are apologetics. I don't think we are ever able completely to get out of the apologetics unless we do away with our belief in the divinity of the Torah. I don't think we have much of an option there. So Berkowitz is working with that. By the way, if you look into Tamar Ross, her book, who is also an Orthodox scholar, and really pushes, you know, to the edge of what is possible, and those things over there which are, even the modern Orthodox have great problems with some of the things which you said over there, but she wants to hold on to the system, right? If you want to hold on the system, you get yourself into this trouble. There's no way what you can do about it. Unless somebody comes up with a completely new idea, which perhaps will then somehow put everything in order. But we haven't, that's the Mashiach himself, which will have to do so. Let me now say something about rabbinical law, which is to me the most interesting aspect of all this. And that is because the rabbinical law is basically what makes today the Jewish tradition. Nearly everything you and I do is rabbinical. Geserot, takanot, there is really no end to it. Now, what we obviously find today in certain Orthodox circles is first of all, to bring rabbinical law nearly or completely to the level of as if they are stated in the Torah itself. In many circles, this is the way how it is handled. It cannot be touched under any circumstances. Why? Because when the Torah Shebaal Peh was given, they argue something like even the rabbinical laws were also given at the time. I remember I've written in one of my books about it. I think there's an observation made, I think by the Torah Tumimah or the Malbim, I'm not sure anymore, who is going through the text of the Torah and already, for example, makes the point, I do not remember now by heart because it only comes now to my mind, is that the second day Rosh Hashanah, or better, when Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbat, we don't blow the shofar. Now everybody knows that there's a rabbinical law. By the way, I just read an article where somebody wants to do something about it, and you sent me this article, to bring this back again and to blow shofar on Shabbat as well, by an Orthodox rabbi. But besides that, the general ruling is that we don't blow the shofar on the Shabbat. Reason is we can't carry on the Shabbat, and therefore we're afraid that somebody will carry it, and that's the reason why. Now, one or the other, I'm not sure anymore, or the Malbim or the Torah Tumimah, brings a pasuk from which he deduces this rabbinical law. Now what is happening over here? Does that mean it's midoraita? Nobody will ever say it is midoraita, that it is mina Torah. But what they are trying to do is, and there was a whole generation of Meforshim who did that, and that is to try to prove, A, that the Torah Shebaal Peh was found in the text, that somehow you can deduce it and get it out of the text if you read the text very carefully. The person who did this in a most genius way was the Malbim. The Malbim has 613 language rules, and he applies them on the whole of the text, and then shows once you apply these rules on the text, which in themselves are rules of language, then you get the whole Torah Shebal Peh out of it. But that is Torah Shebal Peh, which is Midoraita. Yes, because we believe that a good part of the oral Torah was indeed given at Sinai, and he just says one thing. If you look into the text itself, you see the oral Torah already there. And therefore it was given at the same time when the Torah Shebichtav was given. He doesn't speak about the Torah Shebal Peh, about the rabbinical laws, because we know quite well that rabbinical laws over the years have been developed by the Chachamim in the Mishnah, in the Gemara, etc., to the way in which we know it today. But you can never level rabbinical law on the same level as the Torah Shebichtav or as the Doraita laws, with one particular point which we need to make, and that is the following. The Torah Shebichtav does say that when the rabbis decide that this is what you need to be done, what you need to do, you will have to listen to them. Yes? So, what that means is that on the end of the day, you are still obligated to live by them because the Torah says you have to live to the Chachamim. It's not because the Torah says that this rabbinical law is indeed divine law. It is not. But we are treating lately, and I come to that in a moment, we are trying to treat very often rabbinical law in such a way that it is completely becoming identical or identified with Torah Shebichtav. This happens only in certain circles, but I'm just saying the way how we treat rabbinical law sometimes seems to imply that.
Well, the Torah does say,
the point.
Listen to the rabbi.
Right.
Not something that came afterwards. The Torah itself says.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying the Torah says we have to listen to the Chachamim. But I will show you in a moment that there's a big question about what that exactly means. We'll see about that.
And second of all, I'm unclear as to exactly how you're using the terms oral law and rabbinical law. It sounds like you're using them interchangeably.
No.
There's a clear distinction. The oral law in many parts of it is the right.
The right. Yeah, sure. What I mean by oral law is first of all midoraita. That is to say, let's say the lametet melachot of Shabbat, they're probably midoraita. So we say that this is what was given at Sinai, and therefore it is part of the Doraita laws. Yes. Next to it, we have Torah Shebal Peh, but let's not call it, just not to confuse ourselves any longer, Torah Shebal Peh, but let's just call them rabbinical law. I make that distinction very clearly.
For example, the Malvin is talking all about that. He's talking about.
No, as I said, he's only talking about the Torah Shebal Peh, which is midoraita. Yeah. I'm only saying that he or somebody else, and there are a few more commentators, sometimes read even a rabbinical law in the text. Right? And the Gemara itself, there's a smachta, whatever it is, there are ways of how to deal with that problem. What I'm asking is the following. And I know I'm treating here very dangerous grounds. But as once more, I just feel that we need to think about that. And that is this. The Chachamim, the sages, developed a certain kind of rabbinical law. These are stated in the Mishnah, and these are stated in the Gemara. As Justice mentioned, we have an chiyuv, we have an obligation to listen to them. Absolutely true. But they could have created an also rabbinical law. They were not obligated to write or create that kind of rabbinical law which today is part and parcel of the Gemara. And I mention here already the fact, and I hope next week to give you perhaps some examples of that, is that the rabbinical law has minority opinions which we don't follow, right, but which are mentioned. If you just think about Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, to give an example, which is perhaps the most famous example, where the Chachamim could have decided differently and could have said the law is not like Beit Hillel, but the law is like Beit Shammai, or the law is not like this sage, but it is like that sage. And they could have used other criteria and they could have come to other conclusions. The Shulchan Aruch Maimonides in the Mishneh Torah